Yeah, in the late period, I mean, one of the things which is crucial, it's also there in the middle period. I mean, it's there in all of his music, but it developed as he got older. There's this preoccupation with improvisation and how one works it into a composition. And so in these three sonatas, it's very evident this improvisatory, this fusing of an overall structure with improvisation. Especially, maybe one would say in the second of the sonatas, in that last section, which is like a stream of consciousness in a certain way, even though it's so beautifully lucid as he's written it down. But I think the effect for the listener is like a stream of consciousness. Actually, that's quite funny, because in the last sonatas, he's actually backing away a bit from this kind of conflict. Like, for example, the first of the three, that has this very strong conflict between the first two themes. First theme's very short and a relatively quick tempo. The second theme suddenly is much slower and much longer. So you'd think that sets up a sort of dialectic which has to be explored in depth and development. And he doesn't do that at all. He completely ignores the second theme and just, in a lovely way, keeps playing about with the first theme and then comes back to them at the end of the movement. And it's rather typical of the three sonatas that those development sections, which in the earlier works are so involved and trying to sort of get to the absolute core of whatever the conflicts might be, in these cases rather pass by rather easily, and it's more about, I guess, the overall shape of the works, and he's able to let a lot of things just be there without being examined too closely. Yeah, it's a great question. Maybe he'd done so much of this strong exploration that he felt he didn't need to anymore. I mean, the previous sonata was the Hammerklavier sonata, and that is immensely, how do you say, like dealing with the motives in an extremely intense way. I mean, it's hard to imagine how one could go further than that. It was maybe a response to that he really needed something less motivically intense, perhaps. And it could also be, it was a bit of an accident how these sonatas started. The publisher asked him for some new piano sonatas while he was working on the Missa Solemnis, and he needed some money. Then he decided to do it. It was a relatively quick way of getting some money. And the first movement of the first of the sonatas he'd submitted for a piano tutor book as an example of sonata form, I think was the intention. And a friend suggested, why don't you take that back and use it for one of these sonatas? And so the character of that first movement was much less intense than like the Hammerklavier sonata, for example. So maybe having that thing which he'd slightly thrown off for this book, maybe just sort of gave him a different sense of what the potential was for, how we could make a work which had a different kind of character. I don't know. It's a lovely kind of, let's say, space to inhabit when you're playing it. This, because it's still, the pieces still have this incredible sense of architecture, but they're, in a way, slightly more playful than a lot of the earlier music. I mean, they're all challenging in different ways. I mean, I think now, I would say probably the last one. Well, is that fair? I mean, I think when one has, let's say, integrated the music, it seems to me that the last one is genuinely the trickiest to bring off, partly because what the last movement does is so overwhelming in its emotional scope and ends in such an incredibly ethereal fashion, and that's physically extremely difficult to do. But also the first half of that last movement, the beginning of this long set of variations, it's a slow tune, quite a slow tune, there's repeats, and the first three variations can very easily just seem like they last forever. And that's a big challenge, like how one makes it not get boring. So you need a certain amount of variety, but you can't play about with it too much because you destroy then the shape that's building up. So that's genuinely hard.